Here we have the improper fraction 7/4. We want to change that improper fraction to a mixed fraction. Remember, an improper fraction is when the top number, the numerator, is bigger or equal to the bottom number, the denominator. I'm not sure why they're called improper fractions. I guess at some point mathematicians just found this rude. So to turn this number into a mixed fraction, we first have to figure out the whole number part. How many wholes can go in 7/4? And you can see here there's room for one, but there's not room for a second one. So we have 4/4 making up one whole, but we've got 3/4 left over that don't make up a complete whole. And that simply tells us that 7/4 is equal to 1 and 3/4. Magically, 3 more fourths appear, and you can see quite clearly 1 and 3/4 is the same thing as 7/4. Now, let's see how to do this the math way without having to draw a bunch of annoying rectangles. Here I have the improper fraction 7/3 represented by these 1/3 fraction blocks in a much more soothing green color. That yellow color the fourths were in was a bit too energetic for me. It was kind of stressing me out. So these 7 1/3 blocks represent 7/3. We're going to turn that into a mixed fraction. We do that by asking the question, how many wholes are in 7/3 and what fractional part is left over? And just like 4/4 was equal to 1 whole, 3/3 is also equal to 1 whole. So the math that we do is really asking the question, how many sets of 3 are there in 7/3? I do 3 into 7, 7 divided by 3. 3 will go into 7 twice. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract 1 is left over. That's the remainder. Remainder means left over. So once again, visually, we see that we get 2 wholes, 1, 2, and we've got 1 left over. What do we have left over is actually 1 green block. And so 2 1/3 is the same as 7/3. Here's the improper fraction 11/2. I'll move it up here. Go ahead and stop the video and then try this yourself. Come back and see how you did. You back? Good, because I'm still talking, and that would be embarrassing. So hopefully what you did was you took 11 divided by 2. The closest we can get is 2 times 5, that's 10. We subtract, our remainder is 1. And so 11/2 is the same thing as the whole number 5 and 1/2. In this example, when we turn 6/4 into a mixed fraction, the fraction part will reduce. So even though I said we want to keep the denominators the same in this process, once you're done with the math, turning it into a mixed fraction, sometimes you can reduce the fraction part. So for example, 6/4, I'll just divide 4 into 6. 4 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Our remainder is 2. So 6/4 is the same thing as 1 and 2/4. Now we're going to keep our whole number 1 the same no matter what, but we can reduce the 2/4 because 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. And so keeping the whole number part, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 1 and 2/4 is the same as 1 1/2. 6/4 is the same as 1 1/2. But we could have simply reduced the fraction to begin with. 6 and 4 can both be divided by 2. That's sort of like an equals division. So I don't know what's going on there, but we'll just keep it. 6/4 is the same as 3/2. So if I'm going to turn 3/2 into a mixed fraction, I just follow the same procedure. 2 goes into 3 one time, subtract, the remainder is 1. So 1 is our whole number part, 1 is also our numerator, because it's also the remainder. 3/2 is equal to 1 1/2. So it doesn't really matter. You can reduce it ahead of time if that's easier. You can go ahead and turn it into a mixed fraction and then just reduce the fraction part at the end. Either way works, you'll get the same answer. One last case we want to look at. What happens if you do the division and there is no remainder? That's no big deal. In fact, it's easier. And you may be starting to pick up here that a fraction really, in essence, is a little division problem. So in this case, 9/3 represents the division problem. 9 divided by 3. 3 goes into 9 3 times, as you know from your times tables. 3 times 3 is 9. There is going to be no remainder here. So that just means that 9/3 is the same thing as 3. There's no fraction part.